Welcome to Dan's Crypto Adventures. Today we're going to be looking at Miner 1. This is my machine right here, and we're going to be looking at the components that I put into it and why did I pick out those components. This machine I've been running now continuously for about 6 months. I've taken it apart, done a few videos on it, and so I just wanted to talk a little bit about the components that are in it and why I chose those. So as always, remember, I'm not an expert. I've never had any computer training. Just showing you guys what I have put together, what works for me. Hopefully it will work for you as well. Down below you'll find a list, connections to all of these components on Amazon. I am an Amazon affiliate. So please check out those links. Also, please hit subscribe and like if you found this video helpful. I do have some future videos planned. I'd like to talk a little bit about the software in future videos. And also I have another mining rig that is under construction now. It's actually up and running with a few graphics cards. So I intend to do some videos on that when the time is right. So let's get into it. Alright, so the first thing I'd like to talk about is the frame. So this frame here I did build from scrap. All the materials here you can get from Amazon. You can also get the materials from your local hardware store. They would carry most of these materials in stock, so you can make your own frame. There's a video I have on doing that, so feel free to check that out. You can also go on Amazon as well and purchase pre-built frames that work out great as well. This here is a 6-card rig, so let's take a closer look at it. So here is kind of a close-up look at the rig that I have. So it has 6 graphics cards, got 2 power supplies, 2 750 watts, 1 platinum, 1 gold, 2 EVGA GTX 1070s, and 4 GTX 1070 Ti's. And then down here is the main board with CPU, cooler, RAM, and risers as well. So alright, so let's talk a little bit about the components that are in there. So the first is the main board. This is an MSI Z270A main board. Supports 6 graphics cards. I simply got it because it's cheap. This is my first rig, so I wanted one that's a little bit easier to do. 6 cards, 8-card rigs seem to be easier to set up. You don't seem to have as many problems with those. So this seemed like a pretty straightforward board. So that's really the only reason to it. It looks easy to use and it supports the things that I need it to. So we've got that. For the CPU for that, I went with the Pentium G4400. There's also a Celeron chip that's good as well. Here, either one will work. This one's got a little bit more power than the Celeron chip does. Just use the stock fan. There's no reason to go out and buy an aftermarket fan for this. This will be going to a very small load, so any really CPU will work. This is a good one. They're inexpensive, $50, $60. You can get it on Amazon. It'll work great in this rig. You won't have a problem at all. So that's what I did there. Again, just stock fan. No need to get an aftermarket fan. For the power supply, I have 2. When I was building this rig, I built the components, got it up and running with 1 graphics cards, so I didn't have much money to put into it and I was new to it, so I just kind of wanted to try it out, see if I could get it running. So I saved a little bit of money and got an EVGA 750 gold for it. My next power supply I was able to afford a slightly better quality one, but this one works great. This is fully modular. So you can just use the wires that you need. You don't have a whole bunch of wires that you don't need on it, and it works great. No problems at all with it. So that is in there. That's actually the one that's in the back here. Once I kind of played around with the miner and got it up and running, and I decided to buy 5 additional graphics cards. I needed another power supply, so I got an EVGA 750. This one's the Platinum edition. I wish I'd gotten both Platinum. These things run 24 hours a day. This one here uses about 950,000 watts, somewhere in that range. So I wish I had bought both Platinum, because I think you will long-term see some savings through that, even though it costs a little bit more up front. I think it will be worthwhile in the end. This again is fully modular. The links for all of this is below, so feel free to check that out. And the next thing is the GPUs. So here are two GPUs in here are the EVGA GeForce GTX 1070s, 8 gig versions. That's the first two that are right here. Those are the first one. This is the first one I got. I got one of these. Works great. No problems at all. Fits in the rig well. Easy to overclock. Fantastic. The next cards, I bought 5 kind of at the same time, and I got 2 of the Zotac GeForce GTX 1070 Ti's. These are the minis. I got 2 of these, and then I also got Zotac GeForce GTX Ti's, just the standard size, not the minis. I mainly just kind of wanted to try it out, try out a few different manufacturers, try out the minis to see if there's any issues with those. I've got all 2 of each of these cards in this rig right here, running great. Never really had any issues with any of them. They're all 8 gig versions. None of these are 4 gig versions, and so they're pretty easy to set up, easy to overclock, easy to get going. I haven't had any issues with any of them. The RAM, I don't have the box for the RAM. I'll put a link in the description for what I use. Just a 4 gig stick of RAM. There's no need for any more than that. I use Windows for my rigs because I'm not an IT guy. I don't know Linux and all that stuff, and I'm worried to get into that. I'm thinking about trying it in the future. Right now I just use Windows, and it works great. 4 gigs is plenty. I've never really used, the rigs don't use much RAM at all when they're running. And now another part in here is the hard drive. It kind of depends on what operating system you're going to use. I've elected to use an SSD. You could use a thumb drive or an SSD or a conventional spin drive. It just depends on what you have laying around, what operating system you're going to use. I happen to have an SSD laying around, so let me show that to you real quick. So it is mounted on the back in there. So it's just a Kingston 120 gig SSD. It's mounted right there on the back of the rig. That's what I use to run Windows on. You could also plug in a thumb drive into the USB here on the front and run it that way as well. Again, it primarily depends on what operating system you're going to be using for the rig. Now, another note I want to make on this is to make sure you keep all of your packaging. For example, one of my first graphics cards, actually the first one I ever bought, the EVGA GTX 1070. When I bought it, I opened it and I kind of tore the box open. This outer kind of layer here, the inside comes out like so, and I had this piece here which was all torn, and so I threw this away. And then that graphics card did not work, would not turn on, would freeze the system anytime that it was installed. So it was defective, so I had to send it back. And I was actually not able to return it because I did not have this outer sleeve, which is basically nothing. I had the inner box, all the components, all the manuals, the CD, everything else, just not that outer sleeve. And so where I bought it from, they would not take it back. I ended up having to call customer support. I ended up getting like 80% value as a store credit as opposed to a full replacement. So that was an expensive lesson to learn, but I did learn that. Make sure you keep all your boxes, no matter how small, all the sleeves, make sure you keep these, keep everything. I actually have a big box that I wrote on there, minor one, that I keep everything in. Then I also have kind of all my receipts and invoices here that I printed out from the website when I bought it. So that's where I keep everything, and I just throw that up in the attic. Now I've got another one for my next miner as well that has miner and then the number on it. So make sure you keep everything in case you have an issue. It's easier to return. Just a little tip. Okay, and so another question you might be asking yourself is, how do you have 2 power supplies in one computer? On the main board, there's only one 24-pin connection. And there are some ways you can, some power supplies won't turn on if not hooked up to anything, so the power supply needs to think that it's plugged in to be able to turn on. There are some sketchy things you can do with paper clips and such, but that makes me nervous. I'd rather have a manufactured product that works, that makes it work. And so that's where one of these doohickey comes into play. And so it's pretty simple to use. All you do is this end, you plug in one power supply. this one will only, this is the one that we're tricking into thinking that it's plugged into the main board. And so this one will not power the CPU or the main board. It's just for graphics cards and risers. And then on the primary power supply, you plug into this one here. So that's the power supply you're going to plug your CPU into, and hard drive and that kind of thing. So this goes to one power supply, this then goes to your primary power supply, and then this here is a normal plug that plugs directly into the main board. So this is a 20 plus 4 pin, so it also acts as a 24 pin, and that end would plug directly into your main board. The other item that we need is the risers. So those of you that don't know what a riser is, we have 6 graphics cards here. We obviously can't put them all on the board. They just won't physically fit down there. So that's not an option. So we've got to have a method of getting the processing power from down at this level up to somewhere else a little further away, so you physically have room for all of the cards. The way that you do that is a riser. And so you'll buy these little packages. Now I will say these things are notoriously finicky and not the highest quality. I always try to order a few extra. So if you need 6, order 8. You will have a couple of failures in there sometimes. So I always keep a couple extra on hand. You don't always need to order a few extra, but I always keep a couple extra laying around in case one goes bad or doesn't quite work right. All kinds of problems can occur because of a bad riser. And so this is what would come in a typical riser package. The first is this little device here. This is what will plug into the board. So this plugs into the board. It can go into the 16 slot and also the one-time slot. So this plugs into there. And then we have a standard USB cable. So that would plug into here, the top of this little piece, like so. And then that's what extends it up and out of the way. And then we have this larger piece here. This is what the graphics cards will actually plug into. So this is what we mount, in this case, up higher up here. It's underneath the cards. And this USB cable simply plugs into the back of it, like so. And then we have our power. We do have supplementary power here. And so this particular card comes with a 6-pin slot that simply plugs into there. And then that transfers it to a SATA power connection. You could plug a 6-pin directly into this board as well, depending on what slots you have, cables you have available on your power supply. So again, this whole kit right here is called the riser. And you do need one of these for each graphics card that you have. So an 8 graphics card rig would have 8, 6 would have 6. But I always keep a couple extra because they do tend to go bad from time to time. So anyway, so there's a quick overview for what I've used in this rig right here, my Miner 1. You're not very creative on names, but Miner 1. This is it. So feel free to ask any questions down below about anything. As always, thank you for watching. Please hit subscribe and also like at the bottom. And feel free to follow any of the Amazon links to check out these items on Amazon. So thank you.